Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Very cheeky of you. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, today's first story comes from Unhappy Cell 1143. And it says, would I be the arsehole here for refusing to host my cousin's wedding reception at my house? I, 24 female, got married very recently to my husband, 28 male. About a year before we got married, we purchased our first home. We did extensive renovations on the house and put a lot of thought, time, care, and money into it. It is our dream home, sanctuary, a forever home we don't plan to let go of. My cousin, 33 female, recently got engaged and is going to get married this year. She and I are very different in personality, so we have never been close. Our families, however, could not be closer. Her dad and mine are brothers. Some background. She and her husband, 33 male, both currently live with their respective partners. She was pursuing a nursing degree but left the program. She's not working right now. Her husband works. I don't know how much he makes, but it's an average income job. I mention this because they want to throw a big, extravagant wedding. I have my personal opinion about this, but I also understand that my opinion doesn't matter. It's their wedding, their life. I've never voiced anything other than a congratulations on the engagement. The issue is when there is an expectation that family should help them achieve this. I eloped with my husband, and while we didn't have a public wedding, we did throw an intimate reception on our new property. We live in a very quiet, scenic rural area on a small acreage. It is private and thoughtfully landscaped. We have a natural pond and our property is surrounded by the woods. We chose not to disturb the land around us too much, so some of the property line is in the woods. All this to say, it's not a lot of space as it seems when I say acreage, and also to say, without a doubt, it made for a very nice outdoor venue. I understand the appeal, but the key difference is we had a small wedding reception. My cousin wants a big 80 plus guests one. Still, I decided to hear my cousin out. I didn't know at the time how big she wanted a reception to be. I was placed under the impression that it would be like ours. I invited my cousin over and she and I talked about how I set up my reception. I gave her kind of an outline she could use, including all the catering, decor, florists, etc. I made her a meticulous package on Google Docs and shared it with her. She seemed to agree with everything I was saying with a smile. I told her my husband is away for 3 weeks and I will be gone for a week as well. And if she wants, she is welcome to do some planning, just give me a heads up. I always give my mum access to my home just in case, especially since both my husband and I travel a lot. My mum texts me if my cousin can come in with someone to plan seating arrangements outside. And I told her as long as she, my mum, is present to oversee, then they can come. That's when I learned through my mum that she's planning an 80 plus guest wedding and extending the reception into our house, which I explicitly said in person and in my Google Docs is off limits. My mum told her she cannot tour with the organizer the inside of the home, that the owners have not given permission. This upset my cousin. When the organizers left, she became very upset and stormed out on bad terms. Her mother then called my mother to complain ruthlessly about me. I just got back today and I'm told I'm being accused of being spoiled and selfish and small-hearted. None of these accusations feel warranted. I talked to my husband about what happened and he told me the bride and her family are being disrespectful towards me and as such, they do not deserve to host in our home altogether. He said he would revoke the invitation himself. I told him to let me think about it, how to best proceed. Would it be wrong to go back on my word and tell her I can't host a reception? It will cause her problems, but it's not my problem. Here is where I feel a bit arseholey. Edit. They are now offering to cut down the guest list, but I feel like the trust is no longer there. And their sudden animosity towards me makes me hesitant to put my home and self-respect at risk just to appease extended family members. I don't believe they will follow through with their promises or honor the boundaries I've set. I feel like I was misled under false pretenses into agreeing in the first place. Hoo-wee! Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation. I've seen one too many of these stories where this is going to be a disaster if you let her use this house at all. And like you said, and like I say with many of these stories, the trust is gone. Once that trust is gone, that's it really, isn't it? And we're usually saying that in like relationship-based stories, like affairs and all that kind of stuff. But it absolutely works here as well. And then they have the cheek to call you spoiled, selfish, and small-hearted. Absolutely, why would you give anything to these people after that? The generosity that you've already shown offering to have a small wedding or a small reception at their place, and you're just having that thrown back in your face. But in the comments, Flow Mojo Blow says, agree 110% with your husband. Revoke the invitation and be done with it. Entitled cousin has champagne tastes on a beer budget. No matter what you do, she's going to be hateful. So set her free. Big Bro TKD says, not the arsehole, and in the discussions, did she ever mention who would be responsible for the cleanup? I'm sure they'd leave it for you and your husband. The cleanup alone is enough to not let the reception in your house. OP says, you are so right. I feel like she didn't even read my document because once I agreed she had, maybe their secret plan was to do what she wants. OK Reply says, not the arsehole. Who the fuck is she talking about? She thinks she can be rude to you and use your home as a venue. Just say you need to have your venue somewhere else, then block her and her mum and tell your mum that you don't want to hear anything from or about them. It's not rude, even though she deserves rude. It's not long. It doesn't have an unnecessary explanation. It's just what she needs to do while also conveying the message that you won't be hosting. Forget Regret One Day says, girl, let your husband take out the trashy relatives. This is just one thing she would demand you give in, and the list would go on and on, higher than you can count. She thinks what's yours is hers to take, period. This needs to be shut down fast and hard or your sanctuary would end up being destroyed. She has no respect or boundaries and this is never going to work. You would not be the arsehole here, but I sincerely suggest having your husband handle it. You don't need to witness the massive temper tantrum she's going to throw when she finds out she's not getting a free venue out of you. Tough for her. It's nobody's responsibility to pay for or donate to a wedding she can't afford. Opie says thank you. I think I needed to hear this. I feel guilty for backing out of providing a venue last minute, but I am now secure about my stance. They have started to offer to decrease the number of guests, but I'm over it now. Too much disrespect and lack of honesty in the beginning to ever see this thing through for her. Your suggestion is precisely the way to go. Husband will gladly handle it. He knows no one will question him. If it comes from him, then I doubt her family can push back. She wouldn't dare to throw a tantrum in his presence. And maybe they will stop trying to bypass the decision by directing their complaints at my poor mum. Right now, they are bothering her with daily phone calls because what I said holds no value apparently. Why are my spidey senses telling me that they're going to turn up at OP's house at some point? But OP's got a couple of updates. The first update says, I was encouraged to make an update. I'm not sure how updates are done, if it's supposed to be a new post or not, so apologies if I did it wrong. I'm just copying what I saw someone else do. Please click here to view the original post. Some clarification of the venue. We have a carriage house next to our main house. In between the two buildings is a courtyard. The reception would have been held in this courtyard, as well as in the carriage house for an indoor/outdoor feel. The weather where we live is not an issue. My husband was even going to string market lights between the two buildings. We have a very large finished bathroom in the carriage house that would have been for the guests. I was also going to utilize the mudroom of the main house, which has another bathroom for guests with easy access from the courtyard. The mudroom has good separation from the main part of the house, mostly by a large breezeway. We have a long drive that leads to the house, so parking would have not been an issue either. All this to say, the setup would have been perfect for a small reception. We would have thoughtfully taken care of it all. We had no issues when my husband and I hosted our own wedding reception. I love hosting and went into this genuinely happy to host, but it was always based on the understanding that my cousin's reception would be the same size and scale as ours, small and intimate. She never corrected me when I explained capacity. I sent her my notes and stuff from my reception. It had seating plans too. I think she always had the intention of securing my home as a venue and then doing what she wanted with it, hoping to get it done in my absence. When she realized my mum would supervise her visit to my house while I was away, her plan fell apart and landed us where it did. After my mum caught my cousin trying to arrange seating for guests way over the approved capacity, my cousin's family started to slander me for shutting her ideas down. I got called a lot of things I am absolutely not. This included jealous and saboteur, not being accommodating last minute. Their behaviour towards me and their entitlement over our home angered my husband, who was still away. I talked it over with him and we decided I should not host my cousin's reception. My cousin and her family tried to bargain with my mother. Their attempt to bypass my no. They even tried to hide their phone numbers to trick my mum into answering. My cousin and her family began bullying my poor mother to convince me to accept the smaller guest list. Still over capacity, by the way. All this time they went for my mother. My phone stayed silent. I called my cousin to stop harassing my mother because I am firm in my decision to no longer host her. The trust is not there and their behavior makes me not want to host them. She blew up on me during this conversation, expressing that I will be single-handedly botching the wedding if I back out of providing a reception venue, and that I am cruel for not being able to do this one thing for her during a once-in-a-lifetime milestone. She told me to just please see things from my perspective and think about it. I told my husband I'm tired of the cousin and her family not taking my no for an answer. I've been respectfully direct, but they keep trying to persuade me and it's very exhausting. I know they are only saying things to get me to say yes, but they will likely not honour any of it. He said he will take care of it. He called my cousin and told her he will not be hosting her, and her disrespect towards me will also not be tolerated. He told her I was always clear on capacity and the tantrum she and her family are throwing is because they hope to trick me into allowing a bigger reception than I approved. For the failure of that, she only has herself to blame. She started crying and asked my husband if she could throw a smaller reception at the approved capacity. My husband said we are way past negotiation. He will not allow it, not even if I ask him to. I know he said this to give me an out, and I appreciate it a lot. He told my cousin not to contact me or my mother about this request again, because he will be the one they have to answer to from now on. They haven't called or texted, but my cousin tried to DM me on Instagram, and my husband sent her a voice note from my account in the chat, so I think she will stop now. Someone asks OP in the comments on that post about were they going to be contributing any of the money to host them, basically, and OP said sorry for not including that. The groom and bride's family were paying for everything except for a few things my husband kindly offered to pay for. One of these things was hiring valet to handle parking, but that was something he wanted to do to protect us and our property. But I know he would have generously offered to cover to help the event run smoothly. This was supposed to be a 40 people max event. She tried to bring in over double that. And, fair play to that husband for stepping in and shutting that shit down quickly. Sounds like he takes no prisoners. I particularly enjoyed the bit where it said that she asked the husband if she could throw him a smaller reception at the approved capacity, and your husband was like, nah, we're past negotiation now. I will not allow it. You shall not pass. I'm not sure what all the Lord of the Rings stuff is about recently. It's in my head. OP comes in with a final update that says, this will be my final update regarding this issue. I will keep it short. My cousin ended up having a wedding reception at a different relative's property. Oh, this is going to be a shit show, you know it. I did not attend, and neither did my husband. This is because during the time between us saying no and her still looking for an alternative venue, she made an extremely racist remark about my husband. Along with that, in a group chat screenshot that was sent to me, she called him, exact quote, controlling, a tall, motherfucking tyrant, and a misogynistic fucker. All of this because my husband was zero tolerance about her entitled behavior and would not let her go around him. I decided to boycott the wedding. I did not want to celebrate with her. I've also got no contact with her family. During all this, only my uncle, her father, apologized for my cousin's bridezilla behavior. My cousin and her mother have continued to remain firm on the fact that I am an ungenerous and cold-hearted person who doesn't help family. Family! But family! I have a small heart, basically. I've urged my mum to do the same. Go no contact. But I will leave it up to her own discretion. About 110 people showed up to my cousin's reception party. From what I hear, people were peeing in the bushes and stuff. Lots of littering, some property damage, and someone injured themselves, warranting an ER trip, lighting firecrackers. I think some parking violations also happened, which there are fines. I think that's all. End of update. PSA, I highly recommend you don't ever host anyone's reception wedding. It's honestly not worth it, as they're a whole different beast. I love to host small dinner parties, soirees, and events. But this was kind of eye-opening, and I realized how out of my depth and naive I was to have ever said yes. Are you guys ever blown away, like what goes through their heads? I know we've sat together and we've listened and talked about a lot of stories together. And, of course, most of the time, they're always going to be the worst of the worst, because that's why they come to Reddit. Occasionally we get wholesome ones, right? But the majority, there's always some kind of drama going on. But still, whilst recording, I pause and I think, what was going through their head? How do they think? What is coming out of their mouth? What's spilling out of their mouth do they think is acceptable? That they got told that, yes, they can host this wedding, but it has to be like a max of 40 people because the land can't host any more. And their first thoughts is, what, fuck that, we'll do it behind their back. It's like, why? Why would you do that? But I guess entitled people gonna entitle people, right? But anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you ever had a similar situation? Anyone ever wanted to host a wedding on your land? Let us know. And let's move on to another story. And all of this just reminded me about how wild entitled people were. So I was straight over onto that subreddit. I was like, give me a little bit more of this. Sunflower971, and they was talking about, I saw neighbor in the title and I was like, I gotta read this. And let's read it together. Let's find out what this is all about. Neighbor helped herself to other people's stuff. Several years ago, I heard my sweet neighbor and another woman arguing on the sidewalk. I looked closer and noticed they were both pulling a plant pot in different directions and about to fight. No clue what was up, but knew my neighbor. If she was arguing, she was right. Me and my husband went over to intervene. My husband wanted to help make peace. Me, I was going to help my neighbor, no questions asked. Why the argument? The other woman was a new neighbor. Our nice neighbor noticed her plant pots were missing and were in the new neighbor's yard. Yep, new neighbor had stolen nice neighbor's plants, plant pots and yard decor, and decorated her yard with it. My nice neighbor had hand-painted several pots that were in her yard. Thus, they were easy to identify as hers. We all walked over to the new neighbor's yard to get our other neighbor's stuff back. When we got to the new neighbor's yard, we noticed several things looked both weird and very familiar. Oh yeah, and the new neighbor had called the cops on us, or at least someone did. Anyway, the new neighbor had planted patches of different types of grass all over the yard in checkerboard pattern, as well as mismatched shrubs and flowers. I looked at our house a little closer. Yep, we were missing grass patches from the side of the house and one of our shrubs. When the police arrived, the new neighbor was adamant the plants, pots, grass, shrubs, and yard decor were hers. She informed the cops she dug them up from other yards in the middle of the night and planted them. Yep, she claimed, finders keepers. Didn't quite work out. My nice neighbor insisted on pressing charges for petite theft and destruction of property. We just dug up our grass patches and replanted them. Some of them even survived it. Nosy neighbors kept walking by after the new neighbor was arrested. As we were digging things up, we explained why to them. Neighbors kept recognizing their stuff from a yard. One neighbor asked if we'd seen a picnic table as he was missing. We hadn't thought to check the backyard. Yep, picnic table and a yard full of her finders keepers haul. She moved pretty much right afterwards and we didn't miss her. Edit for those pointing out it's petty and not petite theft. Thank you. However, petite theft is corrected by Florida law. Yes, this happened in Florida. It might explain a lot. Florida law section 812.014. Petite theft is defined as when a person steals property from another person or business valued at less than $750. Now, as always, not excusing the behavior, absolutely right in everything OP did here. I can't help but feel there's something mentally not quite right with this person. Undiagnosed mental illness. I'm not a doctor. This doesn't scream right in my head. You're going to take your neighbor's garden decor from their front garden and you're going to put it in your front garden where everybody can bloody see that you've just moved it from A to B. Even squares of grass. What the fuck? I just had this image. Can you imagine walking down this street and you're like, You're stood outside this neighbor's house with all this stolen shit in their front garden, and you're looking to the garden over to the left and the garden to the right, and there's just like squares of grass missing in each of their garden and like bits of mud where the plant pots were, and just in the middle there's just this load of shit in the middle, plant pots, plants, brand new grass everywhere. And either side, the gardens are like some sort of Mad Max landscape. And then she tried the old finders keepers to the cops. Oh, dearie me. That is some craziness. Anyway, what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you ever had an entitled neighbor-related drama? r/Mark Narrations. Throw it over there. You know I love a bit of it. And just a huge thank you for being with me today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much. And hopefully I will see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause you just don't care. House, feel. If we talking to a uniform, who the real? You know we in the deep south, so let's keep it